Discussion for Claremont Housing Authority project-based vouchers for the Goddard block. Mr. Morris.
Yes, as I put in the packet, this is a conversation that I wanted to have. I know there's been some newspaper articles and some discussion going around about the Goddard block and the way the housing's going to be set up in there. I have been approached by the Housing Authority to sign a document just stating that they do have a 5-year plan, but this document is part of their application process for their Section 8 vouchers, for project-based vouchers, so they'll be assigned to the Goddard block through the Housing Authority. I wanted to just come before the council. We do have Michelle Aiken from the Housing Authority here that can help speak, and Marcia, what was your? Franklin from Alliance, who's helping to bring tenants and put tenants into the Goddard block. So they are here today to speak on behalf of the Goddard block and the Housing Authority, and I just wanted to have this discussion with the council prior to me signing any documents that would allow the Housing Authority to move forward placing these vouchers. I do think it's really important to note that the Housing Authority is not the only place that these vouchers could come from. So this isn't an effort to stop public-based vouchers from going in the Goddard block. It would just be discussion of whether we want to do that through the Housing Authority or not. But I do think it's a great time to talk again about how the structure of the Goddard block is set up, the mixed income housing, and how it would work. So with that, I would ask Marcia to come forward and just kind of explain that process a little bit.
I promise I'm not going to read out those documents.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for having me over here. I'm Marcia Franklin. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for Alliance Asset Management, and we are the management company that's going to be overseeing Goddard Block. As you all know, it's at 36 units, and it's a mixed income. It's a workforce development. We have 8 units that are designated to 50% of the average median income for the Sullivan County, so it's slightly different than what the Housing Authority would typically use. And we have 19 units there, it's under the 60% average median income. And then we have 9 units, that are market rent. So there is really a mix of clients, and we'll be able to serve better of your community. I actually had the opportunity to be here Saturday to do some showing, and it was a really good impact to see the community coming in and very happy to be able to get out of their parents' house that have been living 2 or 3 families in one little house and be able to put in an application for a community. So I think it's bringing a lot of good representation of a mixed income to our community. And I'm open for any questions that you may have. I think the project base that we are looking to have in the units will be in the units that are already current subsidy units. So they are already part of the workforce. So they already have that income restriction. So we continue to have the 9 market units. In the remaining, we would like to be able to use 10 project-based Section 8 from the Claremont Housing Authority instead of using from another housing authority. Questions? Yes.
The 10 vouchers, does it take vouchers from somewhere else, or is it additional vouchers?
So we by law, we have to accept the vouchers from any part of the state. So New Hampshire Housing has vouchers. We have other cities that can transfer that voucher to Claremont as well. So we have the obligation to accept them in our communities. It's part of their syndicators requirement too, that we, part of the money that came to build this property requires that we accepted that kind of subsidy as well.
All right. Councilman
Mehta. So the vouchers that come with the property will not reduce the vouchers that Claremont Housing Authority currently has for people in the communities in general?
No, that's an addition. I may want to clarify that because that's a Michelle question. I don't want to speak in her behalf.
Michelle Aiken from Claremont Housing Authority. The main reason why we want to do this is because we're allowed to have 140 vouchers. We have 140 vouchers from HUD. For the past 5 years that I've been in this position, we've been at 130 or below. I thought this nice new property that's coming into town, it would be really good to be part of the project. Project-based vouchers are not part of our portfolio. I would like them to be part of our portfolio, so the process in order for me to do this is one of the forms needs to be signed by the city manager. And HUD is going to allow me to project base up to 20% of my vouchers. We're going to start with 10. And so that's why we're trying to work with the Goddard to get 10 in there. It works really well for them, more than it affects me, because they get vacancy payments even if it's not occupied. You know, of course, we all want it occupied, but the money still continues to come to us if it's a project-based voucher.
Do you still have a waiting list?
Yes.
You do. So
Our
these-
waiting list is about 140 people.
Okay, and you can have up to 140 vouchers,
Yes.
and you currently only use 130?
Yes, that's where the
waiting list.
management company will help us also, because they will help to recruit people. We'll pass our waiting lists on to them. They will help recruiting. A lot of times you don't get the numbers up because people are just not following through with the paperwork and things like that. So this gives us a second entity that's also helping us push the vouchers and get them, you know, into apartments.
So I'm trying to clearly understand this. You have a waiting list of people, but you haven't necessarily qualified them. Is that what you're saying?
So we do probably between 20 and 30 invitations at a time, and people come in and we will send them to them if they meet their income requirements.
Okay.
So that's just a second person helping us get them moving and on to into the
I
apartments.
think it might be helpful for us to clearly understand what you're saying, is if we kind of take an example and walk it through the process. So 9 of the 36 apartments at the Goddard block are at fair market rate, right?
Matter of fact, we have 4 approved tenants at the moment that are ready. We're just waiting for the units to be ready to be occupied.
And 19 of the 36 are at 60% AMI, which is at the county
Yep,
average median income.
yep.
So
And that's for, so the 50% for like 4 people is about 40,800 a year. Just so you have an idea of,
well,
household.
I like to go down the line. So
Sure.
60%,
yep.
are we talking about vouchers for that?
So the
Category?
vouchers, so we would have 10 vouchers that will mix between the 8 units at 50% and then 19 units of 60. So combined, you do a selection of those number of units.
Okay.
And that would be designated to a project base. So just kind of elaborated what she was saying. I have worked in affordable housing for about 20 years. I came from Cambridge Housing Authority, where we did a lot of project base, and I think this is a good opportunity to be able to utilize and bring more funding from HUD to the Housing Authority. So in the future, we can apply for more funding to be able to serve more people. So having those 10 units occupied in the project, like in a community, it will give you the ability to just say, well, we have that need. So she has a waiting list. She gives that waiting list to us as a referral. We contact the applicant and said, we have this building that is ready for occupancy. This is the rent and the income limit. And they have the choice of saying, no, I do not want to apply, or yes, I wanted to apply for that community.
But
So
they
it's the
have to
applicant.
meet, whether they have the voucher or not, they have to meet that
The income limit. Yeah.
limit.
Yeah,
which-
and they also have to go through our tenant selection plan. We have a very extensive tenant selection plan as well.
Can you explain what that is?
So a tenant selection plan is that every affordable housing has to have a plan of how they would select the people from a waiting list, how they would select the candidate to move into their unit. So for us, we do 5 years of landlord history. We do criminal background, sex offenders. We verify all their income and assets. So there's a whole process. So we have
Vetting
obligated to
process.
follow every single applicant that come in. We go step by step.
Do you do credit
And
checks?
you can find that on our website as well, if you would like to read it.
Do you do
Or I can
credit
email it
checks?
to you.
Credit
Credit
checks,
checks.
do you do
Yes, we
credit
do.
checks? You do?
Yep.
So the people that would be taking advantage of, or applying, I should say, for these public-based vouchers. would be-
Project-based vouchers.
Project-based vouchers would be fully vetted.
Correct.
And then you have somebody, property manager on site at the Goddard
So
Block.
we are not going to have somebody on site. We have a resident service coordinator, which is the service for the community, for that specific property, that will be on site once a week. And then we'll do activities with the residents and also help when they first move in. Within the 60 days, we do a survey with each resident there to see what are their needs. So what do they need connected with, they have like transportation issues. So which communities, as you said earlier, when you combine efforts, you can get a lot more. So that's what we do. We connected our residents with services in the area. And then we bring in presenters, we do training, we do gardens with them. So we kind of make them be part of their community and get involved. So we have that person that comes once a week. And then our property manager will come every other week. But we have 24 hours emergency on call. So we have like for maintenance if there's any issues with the building. And of course, I'm on call 24/7 as well. So we are reachable.
And could you just say one more time what 60% of AMI is in this case? What's the dollar amount?
For four people, it's 40,000. For 60% is 48,960.
And for 50%?
For 50 is 40,800.
So that's what I just want to give people
Absolutely,
a good...
yeah. And, I have my card. I can give you guys my card too if in the future you have any questions. Hopefully you guys come to the ribbon cut on Friday. I hope to see everybody there. Yes.
Councilor Kolaski and then Councilor Sweetser.
When you just said for 4 people, so I just wanted some clarity on that. That's not 4 adult individuals that are just pooling together. That's a family of 4?
4, yes.
Councilor Sweetser.
A couple questions. The vouchers. I think I'm hearing that the vouchers stay with the building, not the tenant. So if the tenant got the voucher and then moved somewhere else, they would not have that voucher anymore. It would be for the next tenant that moves in. Is that correct?
Is that okay if I answer for you, or do you want to?
Sure.
Okay. Because the housing authority it has to follow the HUD regulation, after they have lived there for 1 year, if they choose to move away from that building, the housing authority would then offer them a mobile voucher.
If there's one available.
Right.
So if we're at 140, then we wouldn't have one available, and if we would have, HUD calls it a super waiting list, so anybody who decides to move after a year and asks for a voucher, they would go on this super waiting list. They would get the first voucher available.
If you have 140 people on a wait list, why would you recruit or send invites to more people? I don't understand that.
So you have 140 people, but not all of them are going to qualify. We do have 140 people on the list, but a lot of them are from out of state. We get a lot from New York and New Jersey because our waiting list is smaller than a lot of other housing authorities, so we get a lot that we can't. We have preferences for people in Claremont.
I think the terminology is the issue here. I think it's not that she's recruiting. She's sending out notification to the people that are current on her waiting list to let them know what's available. So she's not recruiting addition. She's notifying them that what's available. So she can forward that to our property.
Because they sign up with a pre-application, and once they come up on the waiting list, we do the first 20 or 30, we send them out an invitation to fill out a full application, and that's when we do the screening of them, and then we send it to them.
Councilor Mehta?
2 quick questions. One, what is your market rent? You have 1 and 2 bedroom units?
Yes, I do. I believe, don't quote me, just I can send you afterwards. I believe the 2 bedroom units for market is 1,097.
Say that, 1,097. And does that include utilities?
All utilities are
All
included.
utilities, including electricity. Okay, and that's a 2 bedroom?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. And the other question is, oftentimes when people in the community talk about Section 8 programs, they term them as programs for people who don't work. and I know that's not true. Do you have a kind of a guesstimate on the percentage of these units that you feel people will be working, that live there will actually have
So
jobs?
far, we have received 15 applications. They're not all approved, so, it was just, it's the beginning process. And I would say probably from the 15 application I have, probably about 10 people are working.
Okay.
Typically, both household adults are working, so there's 2 adults working in the household.
So about 2/3 at this point
yeah.
are working
Yeah.
people?
Yeah, but just so you know, we manage about 600 units through the state of New Hampshire, and most of our apartments are affordable housing, and we have most of the people are working force, young families.
Okay. Thank you.
Counselor Stone?
Couple questions. On your credit background checks, is your credit score disqualified, or is your credit
Yes.
history disqualified? So what's a typical
Both.
score that
So
would
we
disqualify?
if they're under 275 or 300, and if they have any, if it's any landlord, like they own money to any landlords, that's a denial.
Collections.
Yeah. Just so you know, they do have a right to appeal. So if they say that, Michelle applies to my community, one of my staff would go through the application, and then if they get denied, they have 14 days to request an appeal, and the hearings with me as the chief operating officer.
Next question I have is, does a felony conviction automatically disqualify an
Yes.
applicant? Thank you.
Counselor Manto? Oh, I'm sorry, Counselor Contois, and then Counselor.
Is the voucher a flat rate, or is it a percentage of income?
So, so the voucher, they pay a certain portion of their rent, and then HUD kicks in the other portion of the rent, which is paid to the landlord.
Their portion is
There's
based
a
on
maximum amount that you're only allowed to.
You can only go up to 40% of your income.
It's 40 now.
In my past dealings with Mr. LaCasse, he managed his own property. Why does he have Alliance?
In order for you to be able to have a management company to do affordable housing, so tax credit, you have to have staff that's qualified under the tax credit certification. So all my staff including myself, have to be certified.
Counselor Manto?
Do you research eviction histories?
Oh, yes.
You do. Do you use a service to do that, or do you just?
So we do third-party verification. The tax credit program requires us to do third-party, so we send things directly to the landlord itself. So we don't do anything, verbally. We have a form that the landlord has to sign and verify that they had issues or late payments. And we also do, when we bring the credit report, typically shows any evictions.
So you don't check with the court system?
It will show in our credit report if they had anything in the court.
That's not been my experience.
Yeah, well, the company that we use is pretty good. So far, we have had, plenty of it. Yes.
As I'm familiar with the rental unit situation, I find that a lot of landlords sometimes cut their losses and don't actually bring a formal action, which would result in it not ever being on an official document. I don't know how you feel, Deb, but I know a lot of times, sometimes it's not worth our time to bring them to court for back rent if you have to evict someone.
Right. We use a system that checks the court
So-
records, and we also run credit checks. Now, the credit checks will show claims for back rent if there's been a judgment.
Right.
But with an eviction, there's not always a claim for back rent.
So one of the things we have to do too, because of the tax credit requires, we have an 18-page application. It's like a book. And one of the questions is talk about, felony, evictions. So if they say no, and we get either a third-party verification or show in the credit report, then we have a reasons to deny them for false information.
Does evictions immediately disqualify people,
Yes.
or is it within a certain time period? Or?
We go back 5 years.
Counselor Switzer?
This isn't a question for the ladies. Are we going to have a discussion about this after we ask them questions?
We can. Oh, boy. Counselor Manto, Counselor Contois, and then Counselor Stone.
I'm recalling that in the past, when approvals for additional Section 8 vouchers would come to the city. It wouldn't be a city manager decision, it would be a vote of the council, but that's just my recollection. I really don't know if things have changed.
Well, I believe what Mr. Morris is saying is that it's part of the paperwork for the city manager to sign off. And I think these are requirements coming from HUD, correct?
Yeah, and I would have to look into that, and I don't know if these are adding additional, it's just ones that they haven't used, and they want to do project-based vouchers, so.
Yeah, HUD allocates our vouchers, not the city. So HUD tells us how many vouchers they'll give us. And I've been at the Housing Authority for a little over 10 years, and we've always had 140. And they generally don't give you any more, but.
Counselor, let me go down to Counselor Contois.
What is your default rate? Do you have data on defaulting, evictions?
Yeah, well, I would say probably 10-15%.
10 to 15?
Typically, it's because if they owe 1 month's rent, we move forward with a demand for rent, and if they don't cure that within 14 days, then we go through the eviction process. And our lease states that if you receive 3 demand for rent in a calendar year, or 12 months, that it's automatic for us. We can go and move forward with an eviction process. It states in our lease.
Counselor Stone?
Just a question about the actual units. How many of the units are 3-bedroom units?
None.
We don't have any 3.
So you're
It's
talking
studio.
4 people going into a 2-bedroom unit,
Correct.
just to clarify that. Thank you.
Yep. They're very large 2-bedroom units.
Okay. Counselor Kowalski, you had a question.
I have a couple. Like, I was feeling warm and fuzzy, and then I started to lose that a little when we're talking about credit scores of 275. I mean, you have to be really at a point. The denial there is not.
It may be helpful if we share it with you, or you can actually go to our website and get our tenant selection plan, because it really gives the detail how we really go into the process to make sure that the people that move into those units that we manage are reviewed and make sure they would be suitable for the community.
Right. The question I really had was, in talking about the voucher itself, I don't know what the term that was used, but they stay with that apartment, even if it's vacant. So the money still comes in. So I'm wondering, I kind of feel like my hands are tied here, that we don't have a choice, because we accept the vouchers through the Claremont Housing Authority, and they do their due diligence to try to find people locally that would utilize those. But I'm just curious what the incentive is for actually filling those units, instead of just letting them.
Well, they would not pay for more than 60 days.
Okay.
And they only pay 80%. I'm sorry to speak in your behalf.
That's okay.
I've done project-based for so many years, so and they do only 80% of the rent, so it's not a full rent.
And if it is vacant, they don't get the tenant's portion of the rent. They would only get our portion.
Right, and we also have to demonstrate it that we have done all the effort to market it and try to lease that unit.
Thank you.
Counselor Mattow, then Counselor Sweet.
The number of vouchers has got me confused a little bit. The reason I think Claremont has 140 vouchers and has for a long time is because the city council many years ago was approached several different times to increase that, and they always voted no. That's why I was curious about whether we had the authority to be making that decision here. But I think what you're asking us to do is allow the Claremont Housing Authority to give 10 of their vouchers to this project. So my question is, I'm a little concerned that we're taking away the vouchers that could go to the general community. You'll have 10 less and you got a waiting list. So that bothers me. And it bothers me that if this project was already approved and built, I would presume that they already had their set vouchers already lined up. So I don't know why we need to take away from the Housing Authority for these vouchers.
So, maybe you can educate them on how the Housing Authority is not really connected to the city. We are connected to HUD we're not run by the city council or the city of Claremont. The city manager is only an appointing official. So maybe it was before my time or something like that. I don't know.
I understand how the housing authority works and where the authority comes from. But I do know that in the past, the number of vouchers, the housing authority has come before the city council to ask for more vouchers because of the need. And it was always a political hot potato, and it was always, they always said, no, we're not going to authorize more vouchers to come into the city. So that's just my concern.
I guess they're not coming before you asking for more vouchers. They have 140 vouchers. They can use these. The only reason this is coming before you was I was asked to sign a paper, and I know that the politics going on around the Goddard block, and I thought it would be good to have a conversation, and I would like consensus of the council before I sign a document giving them authority to move in there. This isn't coming to the council to ask authority or permission for the housing authority to do this. It's just that one piece of paper that I have to sign that really only says that they have a 5-year plan. But I was using this as an opportunity to come before the council and allow the council to ask questions and move forward. And so they're not asking for more vouchers. They're not trying to increase the number that they have.
It's a transfer.
They could use those 10 vouchers at any time, and they're just
Which, if we don't get a project base and she has those mobile vouchers, we can utilize that as a mobile voucher. So those units that we have that is designated for the affordable units can be utilized either way, either as a project base for 10 units, or we can grab her voucher and use that, which the person after a year can move to another location. So it's not tied to the building, but we would have a subsidy the same way.
I can use those vouchers in her building just as regular Section 8 vouchers. And her and I can come to that agreement that we will do that. What I'm asking for from HUD is to add project-based vouchers to my portfolio, which we do not have currently.
Right.
HUD requires me to have the city sign this one paper. That's all we're asking for.
Councilor Mata.
So essentially,
I'm sorry, wait. Councilor Sweetser.
You said there's about 10 vouchers every year you're not using. Do you know how long we've had that gap, that 10 unused vouchers?
Probably about 5 years now. And it goes up and down, but it's, this would give us someone else to help us fill them also, man hours, where we do have one person working on 140 hours. It's not always easy to follow up, but now you have a second company helping with that.
And do we have any other vouchers assigned to New England family housing units in Claremont? The buildings themselves, any other buildings?
Section 8 vouchers, yes.
Are they assigned to the buildings, though, or the tenants? And
no,
then they
we have no project-based vouchers. We want to add this to our portfolio.
Councilor Kier and then Councilor Mata.
I would just say I would be in favor of this. I think, like you were saying, the more manpower that you can have working on this challenge, the better. And it's a resource we have and that we want to be giving to these people, and we just don't have the ability to kind of touch every person as much as we'd like and get to them. So I think a lot of times Section 8 is looked at negatively, but I think everybody has someone in their life that, my niece lived with me for the past year, and she was homeless and she was getting back on her feet, and she really needed to find good housing. And it's difficult when you have a bad credit history or you've been evicted. Like, I'm not saying, obviously, you have very good things in line. I'm very impressed with how you go through your applications, because we actually looked at your application when we were trying to find our place to go. But I think it's really important to realize that, like, Section 8 doesn't mean bad people. So I think there's that stigma, online, et cetera, with that. And like you said, you can use this anyway. You're not asking us for permission to use this. You're just asking for permission to do project-based, where you can get more resources, which I think more resources you can get, I would be happy to give to you.
Councilor Mata.
so You said that you can still do this regardless of whether the city manager signs this paper or not. You can still send people to them with the traveling voucher. It just doesn't become project-based. And from what I'm understanding, the difference with that is that the landlord, with the project-based, is guaranteed rent income, but with the traveling voucher, they are not.
Right. Yeah.
Well,
Essentially,
we are guaranteed income with a voucher because we sign a HAP contract, which is the Housing Assistance Payment Plan agreement, which is a 12-month agreement. So if she has a client that skipped on us, the housing authority is still required to pay for that.
But at the end of the
Regardless if it's a voucher or
the end of the year,
project-based.
when their lease is up, and if it's not project-based, they choose to travel away and go somewhere
can
else.
move anywhere, yeah.
Then you're not guaranteed the income anymore.
Correct.
So this is a benefit to you because it's going to guarantee that income.
It's a
And it's a benefit
to
from the housing
Goddard block
authority
helping,
for
yeah.
more resources, but you could still send people to her whether,
Yes.
The only difference is that right now we do all their legwork for income verification, landlords and all that. We do all that and we share with the housing authority. If she has a voucher, her staff has to do all that separate.
Right, which
Because
is
we
what they're
don't-
set up to do.
We don't go through their process, we go through our process. So the applicant has to go through 2 screening process in a different time period.
yeah. My concern is that there's a long waiting list and it has been forever. And we're going to take 10 vouchers that now can go anywhere in the community out of the pool. So I think that's a negative. But I think it's a great project. I'm glad to see it downtown. I can't wait to see the inside.
Hope to see you Friday.
And Councilor Stone.
I would not be in favor at this time of saying the city manager should sign this document. That's my opinion based on what I've heard here tonight.
Councilor Kowalski?
Well, I just had a question. So when I was behind starting this forced welfare inspection program, so we had a landlord in the community that would accept security deposits from the city of Claremont and then find a reason to evict them. And the city never saw that money back. So that was part of that. So my question would be, when you get one of these vouchers, can you then go to the city and also get your security deposit paid from the welfare office?
The city no longer pays for security deposits. They'll pay for rent, but they do not pay for their security deposit. So they'll pay for like 1 month's rent if they, at least in my experience, I don't.
I guess I'd like to follow up on that with the welfare office because I understood it to be we would not do that unless it was a property that was inspected and had met code.
That is true.
So this property clearly
Obviously.
would be one of those properties that would meet their eligibility to receive city funds additional as a security deposit. So that would just be my follow-up question.
I have some things to say, but it's not towards these ladies, so if anybody else wants to ask questions or doesn't have any questions, maybe they could sit. It's nothing they can answer.
Is this about?
About the
Vouchers?
project and the vouchers in general, but it's not a question for these ladies.
Okay. Is there any other questions? No?
Okay.
Not really, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So since this project first started, even before New England Family Housing even bought the building, there was public outcry about this being low-income housing downtown. And in person and online, I've been in many situations where I actually defended this and said, read what they've written, listen to them on video. This isn't Section 8 housing. It's not low-income housing. I went back in 2017 at the zoning board meeting when they went before the board about the parking variance. They were pointedly asked housing, and Kevin LaCasse said, no. He said it was yes, workforce housing. He said that Section 8 vouchers are a personal thing, but this will not be on the building. Specifically said no Section 8
Project-based.
with the building. I could forward y'all the email, I found probably 15 newspaper articles where it was mentioned that this was not Section 8, this was not low-income housing, this was affordable housing. Even their own Craigslist ads say affordable workforce housing. There's no mention of Section 8. Since Mr. Morris came here, he has pushed strategizing Claremont, that we need to set a goal, we need to have a roadmap. We are working really hard to revitalize downtown. For me, putting a building that has a set 10 Section 8 vouchers, so that that's going to be there no matter what. That sort of contradicts revitalizing downtown and what we're going to spend so much money doing. And there's 3 or 4 commercial spaces below it, and we need to think, I know we don't want a stigma around Section 8 housing, but are we going to attract businesses that are going to make money downtown with 10 Section 8 units above it?
No, more than 10.
Well, 10 would have the vouchers, guaranteed.
But the rest would go with the building, and that would still be Section 8. There's only 9, right?
Margaret.
It's not Section 8. The building is a workforce community
But you're going to have
that
Section
has-
8.
that we can accept a voucher at any of those
Should go to the
affordable units.
Podium so people at
Yeah,
home can.
could you come to the podium,
Yeah.
sorry.
Sorry, I
Thank
thought
you.
it was done.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. So the building itself has units, they are affordable units. So those affordable units, legally, we have to accept a mobile voucher. So we don't have to accept, the project base doesn't need to exist there, but we would have to accept a voucher holder, because otherwise we're discriminating them against anybody else that has a right to apply. So, if you feel that a stigma will be there, if you have 10 units that designated to project base, it's your personal choice, of course. But regardless of that, those remaining units, so the 27 units, will have the 50%, they're 8 and 50%, and 60% are the remaining of the units. That would be affordable workforce income restricted.
But they're going to pay a portion of their income, those other units, right?
So the other units have to pay the full amount of the rent. So if the rent is $890, they pay $890. If they have a voucher, they'll pay 30% or 40% of their income. But if anybody to be approved to the unit will sign a lease with us that says you have to pay $890. Just give it a number.
So the only subsidies that will come from the whole building, the only subsidies will be 10 units?
Correct. So
None of the other, you'll get subsidies for nothing. They'll pay market rate?
No,
Or
the other units, we have the right to accept it, Section 8 mobile voucher. I think the difference that I think that's getting confused is what is project-based unit and what is a voucher, mobile voucher. So mobile voucher travels with the person. They
Right.
can take there anywhere in the United States. The project-based stays with the building.
But, so those are not subsidized. The rest stay with the building unless somebody comes with a traveling voucher to you.
Correct.
So it's like Sugar River Mills, for example.
Those are project-based units.
Those are project-based units, but they're subsidized.
Yeah, so the federal government pays 70%, and the tenants that live there pay 30%. Our community is not that.
Okay. So that's where
That's
I've been
the difference,
confused.
Yeah, that's the difference.
Counselor Stone.
Just real quick, I forgot to ask this earlier, but the fair market value of the 9 units, what's that going to be?
I think
It's on their website.
I think I want to say 1207 for the 2-bedroom, but I don't know at the top of my head, but
Just
it is
rough
on our
idea.
website.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Are you guys charging fair market rent, or do you have a set limit? Because for
So-
some reason, I think fair market rent is actually higher than your
So
rents
fair
listed.
market rent is a HUD regulation. So what we did when we did it, the market units, we did an analysis of other rents in the area. And that's how we came out with our average.
Are all of your other units that same amount, though?
So all the other units are under the average median income for the Sullivan County HUD regulations.
Yeah, and I'm trying to find it right now. On your website, there has a limit, like studios will be 780 to...
773 to 913.
913.
There's a range. So there's
that based on square
50% and
foot?
60%. So that's where the range is.
Okay.
Is 913 fair market rent, though?
That was just a number that kind of, I
Yeah.
give it, just to give an example.
Well, I'm trying to figure out if you all will make more money if you have voucher tenants in there.
We're actually
If
going to
a-
make less money,
It'll be secured.
but we'll have security.
So you can't charge fair market rent that may be higher if
Correct.
there is
You
a
can't.
voucher tenant.
Correct. Yeah. We actually probably will make a lot more money if we just accept vouchers. But we get, if we have a vacancy that cannot be filled, and we demonstrated that we have done all the marketing, but we could not find somebody to move in, then we'll get 80% of the rent. But in 20 years doing this, all the project base that we have, moments we get a notice, we start a process of new application, we never collected special claims, what they call special claims, which is vacancy claims. Any other questions?
So to wrap it up, if he were to sign, if Mr. Morris were to sign that piece of paper, it's allocating project-based vouchers for 10 units,
Correct.
which means that those 10 units are somehow subsidized by HUD to a certain level.
And they will stay with the building for, I think the initial contract's a 10-year contract.
Is it how many?
10 years.
10 years. And if he doesn't sign the paper, then no apartment is locked into that.
Correct. But every single affordable units, we have the right to accept the mobile vouchers.
Right. Okay.
Yes.
What is the process for getting more vouchers? Does it fall on a city, on the housing authority?
That's
Does
a
it fall
housing
on a-
authority process. From working at Cambridge Housing before, the process typically you have to demonstrate that there is a need in your community, and we can put in a request to the federal government, and they may, if they have money in their budget, they'll be allocated to a city. But I haven't seen that happen in the last 7 years.
Okay, we need to wrap it up. So, yes, Councilor Mata.
I'm sorry. So, with these 10 project-based vouchers, if the city manager signs this, you could potentially still have as many as 36 subsidized units there if the applications came in that way and people brought their vouchers to you, correct?
They're not subsidized units. I think that the
Well,
terminology
okay,
is
you would receive,
critical.
if somebody came with a voucher, a Section 8 voucher,
Right.
you would receive the subsidies if they qualified, and you could potentially have the whole building filled that way.
We could.
You could,
Yep.
potentially.
I have never seen any of our
Okay.
communities.
And
but
I
we
would
do
agree
have
that that's probably not going to happen, but that's conceivable. And if you have, he doesn't sign this paper and you don't get the project-based, the housing authority could still send you 10 people with vouchers for that.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Either way, we could use the Claremont Housing Authority vouchers or subsidy, for the lack of words. Any other questions?
Nope.
Nope. All right. Thank you.
So Mr. Morris asked for consensus from the council one way or the other. We've heard from Councilor Stone. I don't know who else we've heard from. Yes, Councilor Kirishi was for, he's not in favor.
I'm not.
You're not in favor, Assistant Mayor Dameron?
Yeah, I'll be in favor. I agree with Councilor Kier. The question seems to me to be pretty basic, I guess, when you boil it all down. It's been an interesting discussion. Loved having it. It's educational. But if they get people coming in with vouchers, they can accept them. The only difference now with project-based vouchers is the voucher stays with the building. There it is. No harm, no foul.
I'm a no because I feel that there's still a great need in Claremont for these vouchers to be traveling vouchers. There's people in this community that need them. There's a 140-person wait list, so it's inconceivable to me that those could be taken away from a group of people that could need them to go to this, specifically specified for this project. So I'm a no.
Councilor Kaliski?
I'm a no at this time.
Councilor Controis?
You were asking for a vote now? Yeah, I'm in
No,
favor.
Just
I'm
a
asking,
consensus.
it's not a vote.
Consensus.
Just consensus. Your position, so you're in favor.
I'm in favor.
Councilor Stone?
I'd like to reaffirm my non-support of this by the council if they choose to.
Okay. I'm very concerned that if we lock in project-based vouchers for this building, and they still have the opportunity to work with the housing authority to accept mobile vouchers, we are running the risk of having more than 10.
Yeah, it could be the case anyway.
Could be the case.
It could be the case anyway.
Yes.
I should just stand right here. I know you guys are probably tired of hearing me, but I just want to clarify that I think the one point that I want to do is that I can accept a voucher for not just Claremont Housing Authority, so I can accept a voucher from New Hampshire Housing, for example. And their waiting list is a 10-year waiting list. So I think in this case, you'll be utilize people that are current in the Claremont Housing Authority waiting list to be placed in 10 units. So those people that have been waiting for, I don't know, 2 or 3 years are now going to be able to be eligible to move into a unit instead of sitting there waiting for a mobile voucher. So that's the only clarification I would like to do.
So there's a benefit there.
Right.
We could be serving.
Because, I mean, I can go and get 36 vouchers from New Hampshire Housing instead of Claremont.
Well, that
But
is an
this makes
important
them
detail.
utilizing yours,
That is an
utilizing
important
your
detail.
city vouchers versus
Yep.
another housing authority. Any other questions?
I don't like the sound of that.
It's a federal law.
Yeah, but why can't
It's a
you?
federal law, so we have to be able
Well,
to
of
accept it
course
for
you
you.
can, but that doesn't mean you're going to put preference over.
We don't put
some
preference,
other
but if
area.
somebody
Yeah, so-
apply, it's basically the application is processed by date and time stamp. So it's processed by, if a person's 1 minute apart, we just follow that. In the first 36 people that qualify get places. So they may have a voucher from New Hampshire, they may have a voucher from Claremont Housing Authority. So we can, we don't give
given-
one
I see that as
bucket
a
or another.
positive, because then we're making sure that Claremont Housing Authority has 10 spaces guaranteed instead of just
Correct.
state,
Based on that alone, I will be in support because
That to me is a big difference.
Yep.
You know,
That
if
is
I
a
live in
huge
I don't live in the
difference.
city of Claremont, but if I live in the city of Claremont, that's what I would rather have in my community versus having somebody from another housing authority coming into your community and use their voucher.
if there's no other way to stop that,
Nope.
nope. So
I would like to know how many people actually use their vouchers in their non-home communities. Because then you have to
That I
think there's
can't
job,
answer.
they have to find a job. Do they actually do that? I don't.
I've seen a lot. I mean, we have most of our properties are in the Concord area, and we have people from other parts of the state coming there because other cities don't
Well,
have
there's a lot more
properties.
jobs in Concord than there is in Claremont.
Well, I don't work in Claremont.
There's a
But
lot of
you
jobs.
That's what I'm saying, like, I live in a different place than Claremont.
It's
so-
it might be more tempting to draw somebody from Claremont to go use a voucher in Concord because there's a little more opportunity there. Whereas somebody from Manchester or Concord may not want to move to Claremont just to use their voucher.
I don't know. I've been
Councilor
approached by New
Can we
Hampshire
move-
Housing
can we move
that
the
are
question?
looking for units.
So
We already
I think we already voted.
consensus.
it's consensus, so
Yes.
it's 4-4. Thank you for your time and
very
your
welcome.
information.
Huh? What was the vote? It passed?
It's just a it's a consensus, it's not a vote.
4-4.
And 4-4.
Doesn't help me much, but
Doesn't help
I
it.
guess I'll make a decision. But
I have a lot, yes, break. Yes, we'll go on to break. We'll be back at 8:38.
We're going back.
However, it doesn't really turn into drug paraphernalia